Hey guys, what is up? SuperKmanrocks here, and I am here for my Week 3 LPL overview, analysis, and of course, at the end, my power rankings. It is a very interesting week in the LPL, a lot of interesting series to go over, definitely some upsets. This is the week of upsets, if you will. A lot of teams taking series that I don't think a lot of people saw coming, and the power rankings are going to look quite a bit different after the end of this week, but that's a good thing and a bad thing. If you guys are excited, let me know that down in the comment section below. Let me know what series you were most looking forward to going into the week and what series maybe over-exceeded your expectations, your favorite, even if you want to leave that. But let's go ahead, let's not waste too much time. As we all know, LPL is quite an undertaking. It is by far the most games to go over in a week. So let's go ahead and jump right into our first day, which was kicked off with a 3-game set between ThunderTalk Gaming and Bilibili Gaming, BLG. And TT actually takes this one. I think shocking a lot of people. This is a team that has shown not much, honestly, at the beginning of this year. And BLG, you know, a team that maybe hasn't performed up to expectations at any point this year, but has certainly never looked quite like this. This is their worst loss of the year by far. TT honestly looking like the better team throughout most of these games, especially Game 3. Which is really, really interesting to look at. First thing to note with ThunderTalk, they are swapping out their bot lane. Puff and Southwind are out, and Kepler and Yao Yao are in. And they look much better. Honestly, they look, I don't know why they haven't been playing all year if they are this good. But yeah, they look much, much, much better, at least in this series. Of course, they play later in the week as well, which we'll get to, but they look like a huge upgrade. Yao Yao's actually going to get my player of the series here for ThunderTalk. He was really good, especially in that Game 3 on the Alistair. Like, those plays were extraordinary. The engages, really a champ that he looked super comfortable on, and then Kepler, just on the hyper carries in the bottom lane, kind of playing through that. Of course, in that Game 3, you had a pretty scaly comp, if you want to call that, with the Silas in the top and then Azir Jinx. Like, that's a team fighting nightmare to go into, and if you get to that point of the game, you're just going to lose. And ThunderTalk kind of won early as well. It was just a disaster from that point onwards. Doggo's Kaisa build doesn't help much, but certainly we will get to that. Honestly, ThunderTalk played pretty well in this series overall. Like I said, Kepler and Yao Yao were a huge upgrade. And Yucal had, by far, his best series of the year so far. He has really looked like I think I called him the new Maple. Kind of what Maple was for the last couple of years in the LPL. It just felt like that mid laner that is past his prime from a different region trying to come in and is just not good enough anymore. But this is a sign of life. Like, he was pretty good in the series. We'll get into the series later in the week but he had a little bit of a resurgence this week. He looked really, really good. Him and Beishuan, I think, are finally starting to develop some jungle mid synergy, which is important for this team. And then Hoya on the top lane, definitely an improvement. He is probably there to stay. At least I would have him there to stay. He looks like the better top laner. As for BLG, you can't be losing series like this. Like, at what point do you start to hit the panic button a little bit? Because this is bad. Like, this is not a good look. There are a couple people you could give dud of the series to. For me, it's going to go to Doggo. This team relies a lot on his ability to carry, because really the only player on this team that has carry potential outside of him is Weibo on certain champions. And they picked the Trundle for him in Game 3. Clearly, this entire comp is built around the Kaisa being the team fight problem, and they want to play towards bottom lane, but honestly, Doggo doesn't play up to standard if that is their game plan. He has been arguably the weakest member of this team, and that's saying a lot because Icon has played quite poorly as well, and Fofo did when he was in. It's not like he has been much better, but Doggo's been a pretty massive disappointment, so he pretty deservedly gets my dud of the series here. He could have given it to Weibo, but Weibo, I think, had a much more difficult task on his hand. As for the outlooks of these teams, ThunderTalk's gonna love getting this win. Like, this is a nice win for them. Like, I don't think they're playoff bound or anything like that. It's not like wins and losses are super important to them. I think right now they just want to, like, see who they have and figure out a lineup that works so they know who to keep and who to look for a replacement for in the offseason. But for BLG, like, this is a team that, if they don't make play, like, they're starting to look like they might not be a playoff team. And if that's the case, that is absolute worst case scenario for this BLG team that really spent in this offseason. Bin is not cheap. Weibo is not cheap. Doggo was not cheap. And Crisp is not cheap. Obviously, you tried to bring in Uzi. He was fine. You ended up going with Doggo full time here, and Doggo has been super disappointing. So you have to figure something out. The mid lane position has been a huge hole for them. I just don't know where they're going to get their carry performances from, because it certainly, I don't think, is from somebody who's playing on the roster right now. Moving on to the second series here of day one, we had OMG taking on EDG, Edward Gaming, and another upset here to start off the week, both day one series, probably shocking a lot of people, as OMG is able to take the series in 3 here, winning again games 1 and game 3. Yeah, this was a really good series from OMG. I really want to talk about them, because this team is like very quietly coming into their own right now. They have 2 of the more interesting solo lane prospects in the world right now, in my opinion, in Shanji and Cream. Cream, I've been, I'll say it right now, Cream is my player of the series. I have been singing Cream's praises on this channel for a year plus now. This is someone who I have been incredibly high on. I think he is very likely within the next year or 2 going to rise into that upper echelon of LPL mid laners. Not an easy group to break into, but he showed that he might be closer to that than we think, because quite frankly, he was just better than Scout in this series. Scout, the World Finals MVP from last year, if you don't remember. He just outplayed him in pretty much every aspect. He was just better, especially in that game 3 on the Corki, where his damage was ludicrous. He was phenomenal in that game 3, but I don't want to downplay the achievements of his teammates, especially Shanji in the top lane, who has really, again, come into his own in the last couple of weeks here. He's found that Shyvana top pick, and really at this point, this has to be a permaban against OMG, because he takes over games on it. He is actually game-breaking on that Shyvana in the top lane. You cannot continue to give him this pick. We saw it last week. We're seeing it again this week. He is too good on it for you to greed and ban something else, because when he gets it, he wins, and he wins hard. And Flandre found that out the hard way in this series by having to play into it not once but twice on Gangplank and on Gnar, and neither were at all successful. Shanji was able to output a ridiculous amount of damage, and with the Ghost was actually able to do a lot of repositioning in those fights, so really interesting. Aki and Abel, I think, also played really well. It's hard to know what Cold was able to do, because in that last fight, he was just on Cream the entire game. So, OMG's just really, I'm really excited about this team's future, and I hope they can keep this core together, because I think they can really grow together and become one of the better teams in the LPL with a few tweaks. Maybe a support tweak, maybe you upgrade, either jungle or AD if something doesn't click for those 2 in the next couple of weeks, but I really like what OMG's doing. They have a great foundation. As for EDG, this was not good. You do not want to be losing this series to OMG. They just kind of looked like they were on autopilot. There's really no other way to put it. They did not look prepared for this series at all. Not banning Shyvana in game 3 is, inexcusable, really, at that point from this team. But it's not like the play on the Rift was better. Like I said, Scout just got outplayed by Cream, but he's not my dud of the series here. That's going to go to JJ in the jungle, because, wow, some really big mental mistakes from JJ in this series, which is something that we don't often see from him. He's been relatively consistent, and honestly, probably the more consistent member of this EDG team, at least so far this year. And this was not a good example of that. He was not good in this. Uncharacteristic mistakes by going in on Vi when you have absolutely no business. Blasting your AD carry into the Baron pit, only for him to miss every single Q. And we'll get to Viper in a minute, but just some weird plays from JJ. Not a good series. Like I said, Flandre got outplayed by Shanji, but really, Shanji was on his characteristic pick. You want to get him off of that by any means necessary. They did not do that here. And then Viper was, he was really good in game 2 on the Ezreal. He comes back for game 3, and he was just way, way worse. Something happened in between those 2 games where it's the same matchup, but still Ezreal into Tristana. Yes, I know you have the Karma now, and you're going into the Yuumi, which is a little bit more annoying, but you have the Karma now. You should be pressuring that lane, and the Q misses were disastrous. The commentators started calling out, another missed Q. It was just not a good look for Viper in that game 3, but just overall from EDG, a mental breakdown is all I can really call it. But as for the outlooks, EDG does not look like a team that is contending for Worlds right now. And that's really, really sad to say. Obviously, the defending world champions, they do not look like they are close to the top 4. And they're not far off. Again, this is the same exact 5 that won Worlds last year. They just need the minor tweaks. And to mentally refocus is really what it feels like this team needs to do, because it looks like they are just kind of off right now. I don't know if that's going to continue into playoffs and everything, but they better figure it out at some point. As for OMG, this is a great win. This team, every single win they get, for me, inches them closer and closer and closer to me going, maybe they are a playoff team. Like, I have them right just on the outskirts with a lot of the other teams that I think are on the barrier. And this win is definitely going to boost their ranking in large part due to how well their young players are developing. That's going to bring us into day 2 of LPL action. We kicked off day 2 here with a series between Invictus Gaming and LNG Esports. This another one that I think people thought it was going to be more competitive than this, but at least this time, no upset. No upset. LNG is able to pull out the 2-0 series victory. A lot of people saw a lot of hype in this Invictus Gaming team in spring. I'll explain a little bit later why I wasn't one of them. But let's get into LNG. This is the bounce back that they really need. They've really been struggling to start this year to obtain, I should say, consistent results. The loss to OMG doesn't look nearly as bad now that they've also beaten EDG, but still, you want this team to be able to compete for that top 4 spot. They are paid to do that, and they have the talent to do that, so they need to be able to do it consistently. I think they found a little bit of a sweet spot in terms of draft. The Poppy pick here on Tarzan, I think, is really, really good. This is a pick I've been advocating for all year long. Clearly, somebody has been watching Gen G games because we've been seeing it over and over, and it's a big reason why Gen G has been so successful in a lot of these mid-game skirmishes, is because Poppy can be really dangerous to fight into in the mid-game. But that's not the only weird pick, quote-unquote weird pick that we saw in this series. We saw both mid laners actually pull out a trade of weird picks. In game 1, Uakai is the one to take the Scion here in the mid lane into the Taliyah matchup. That one did not work out for him nearly in the way that he thought it would. And then Doenby in the second game, full AP Gragas. Doenby is my player of the series. It was awesome to see. That thing hurts. Full AP Gragas really does some damage. It felt like I was back in Season 3 again, which was fun to watch. It's always cool to see off-meta picks like that, especially when they work. So yeah, Doenby is my player of the series here. He was really good in game 1 on the Taliyah, but really I'm giving this to him for his game 2 here on the Gragas, which was really, really solid. And Tarzan honestly played really well this entire series as well. You could realistically give this to Tarzan in the same vein. I just really liked the game 2 on Gragas here for Doenby. I thought it was the best game from anybody. As for Invictus, I should say, before we move on, Ale actually had 2 really good games on the Gnar as well. Light and Awandi were there. They've been fine. Honestly, Light's taken a pretty big step back from spring, I should say, when he was one of the better AD carries in the league. Him and Awandi just haven't found that same level of synergy, and him and Lumao didn't have it at all. So I don't really know what to tell you. Hopefully they can get back on the same page, but they've definitely been the weakness of this LNG team. Moving on to Invictus Gaming, a lot of people had a lot of hype for Invictus because they really showed some fire in spring. They got some wins that they really weren't supposed to, and I don't know, I just was never on that same page. I am a fan of June here in the jungle. I've been a fan of June for a while, and I know people really like Zika in the top lane. I'm not sure I'm quite as high on the Zika hype train as I am on maybe some of the other players, like I just talked about Shanji, someone like a Wayward. I feel like there are a lot of really good top lane prospects in the LPL. I'm not sure if Zika's in that upper echelon right now. Could he get there? Maybe. I do like Uakai, but in this one, he's going into Doenby. Not much you can do. And then, quite frankly, Wink and Jinlu, formerly known as Lucas, are the worst bot lane. I don't know. I guess WE is a pretty bad one, but right. They're like the second worst, or contending for the worst bot lane in the LPL. Wink has been atrocious in summer. And Jinlu finally comes back in here. They've been playing on at AD carry and then Wink at support, which is a super interesting combo, but they bring Jinlu back in here, and he is awful here, especially in the game 2 on the Amumu. Really, really terrible engages. Like, there's really no explanation for it. Amumu is a trap pick. I've been saying it all year, essentially, really since he got nerfed after Worlds. His pick has really not been something that I would recommend, because it is so all or nothing, to the point where you often get nothing because you have to risk everything for your engage as a Mumu. It's really easy to stop if you have any sort of disengage. And this is a team with Renata, this team with Nars, this team with Gragasol, this team with Poppy. I mean, Aphelios on the backline is going to blow that guy up really fast. Like, in team fights, I just don't see how a Mumu really works unless you get a surprise, like, out of vision flank. So, I guess, you know, not a pick I'm super a fan of, but I think they played it worse than the pick anyways. So, yeah, IG not looking good here. I certainly think they look like one of the bottom teams in the LPL. You know, a lot of people thought they might be able to contend for, like, that echelon of playoff spots. I think they're pretty out of that by now, at least in terms of how they've shown to be able to play. They've gotten some good results early in the year in terms of, you know, losing 1-2 to better teams, but I think at some point you got to pull the rug and say this team can't win a series. So, yeah, I'm a little bit down on IG, but good win for LNG. They needed to do this. They needed to reinstill some confidence after a shaky start to the year. Hopefully they can keep it up. All right, moving on to the second series here of day 2. We had Weibo Gaming taking on Anyone's Legend. Another pseudo upset here, but we're kind of getting to the point where I'm starting to not doubt Anyone's Legend anymore. AL takes this 2-1. Another really fun series here to watch. Not for the reasons you'd expect. Certainly a fiesta, and Weibo Gaming is really starting to live up to their players' reputation with how they play, but we'll get to them later. Let's get to Anyone's Legend first. This team has really been streaking, haven't they? They are playing way, way above their talent level, at least in my opinion. Some players have really, really stepped up for this team. 3 in particular, at least this split. We'll talk about the player of the series first here in Xiaohao in the jungle. Another really good series from him. He's been really consistent in the jungle so far this year. A really good game, too, here on the Wukong. And he follows that up with a really fun Lee Sin game here in Game 3, where he really just out-jungles SOFM. We'll get to him later, but yeah, Xiaohao has taken a pretty huge step up here in summer. I know a lot of people were pretty excited about him when he joined Anyone's Legend in the first place, but yeah, he's really been good. Forge is another one who I think has had a really solid split so far. Been one of the more consistent mid laners in the LPL. You see a lot of ups and downs from that position, but Forge very rarely seems to lose. At the very worst, Forge goes even and is really effective in team fights, especially on these late game, like more supportive picks that we see in this series. Things like the Silas he's been playing a lot of. And then in this series, he pulls out the Twisted Fate as well. So a good season so far from Forge, honestly. Been a huge upgrade to what, you know, Maple was offering you at the beginning of the year. And then Chocho at support, I think, has also been a pretty big positive for Anyone's Legend. Somebody who's been in the league for quite a long time and has really settled in here with Betty to be one of the more consistent bot lanes in the league so far this split. Chocho's kind of been the driving force, though, as that engaged player, where Betty can just kind of capitalize on what a lot of what he's doing a lot of the time. So those three have really been a driving force for Anyone's Legend team that is surprising a lot of people, and at this point should no longer be considered a huge underdog. This should now be considered in the realm that I think a lot of people used to think of a team like Ultra Prime or Rare Atom last split, where, yeah, I think on any day they can really beat the top LPL teams if they're in form and if the other teams are out of form. As we see here, they beat Weibo. Like, they beat them. They were better by a lot. And we'll get to that now, I guess. Man, this was a rough one for Weibo. They actually looked really freaking good in Game 1, especially the bot lane here. Huanfeng and On, I think, have been like the huge strong point for this team for the most part of this split so far, especially On. I have been ridiculously impressed with how he's played, and he had a really good Game 1 on the Rakan here, but man, you move into games 2 and 3, and the script completely flips here. On goes from being somebody that I've praised pretty heavily on this channel, being one of the best supports in the world, to just being, like, actually griefing in Game 2 here on the Braum. He was actually griefing. It was one of the worst games that I've seen in a very long time. But not to be one-upped, SOFM has a grief of a series here, especially on the Lee Sin in Game 2, but again here on the Viego in Game 3, an awful series for SOFM. He's going to get my dud of the series. At some point, you have to say, like, what are you doing? Like, this is almost a bench-worthy performance just for, like, one series, because you have to say, like, what you did today was, like, completely unacceptable. This is probably the worst performance of anybody so far in the summer split for the LPL. Like, it was that bad. SOFM was game losing basically on his own. I've really never seen a pro player play like this, so pretty insane when the Shy is like your most consistent player in this series, which he was. He was okay. He had a pretty bad game too here on the Azir. You're going to pick that into the Gangplank. It's, it's a counter matchup. It didn't win. Oops. Yeah, your jungle lost pretty hard, so maybe, but like still you got to win. And he didn't win, so a little bit rough there for the Shy, but he was fine in this one. And then, like I said, everybody else was a little bit of a dumpster fire, especially SOFM and On in those games 2 and 3. But On played so well in game 1, I can't give him the dud of the series. For me, that goes to SOFM pretty easily. But a big win here for Anyone's Legend. They absolutely deserve it. They were better here today. They took advantage of Weibo's mistakes, even if they were super uncharacteristic. But for Weibo, like, this has to be an anomaly. This team cannot play like this all year long. They haven't played like this at all year long. So I'm going to take this one like an anomaly. I'm going to credit Anyone's Legend for the win, and I'm going to assume Weibo can bounce back in the next one. That's going to bring us to day 3 here in week 5 of LPL action. We kicked that off with FunPlus Phoenix FPX taking on LGD Gaming. A 2-1 win for FPX that they do secure, even though it's a little up in the air. Probably a little bit closer than they would have wanted it. They probably would have wanted to 2-0 this one, but this has been rocky to start the year, so they're going to be pretty happy with a 2-1 win here. And they really look to be back on form, or I should say on form in general, with the addition of Summit here in the top lane. He looks like he has unlocked something in Clid. I'm not exactly sure what that something is, but ever since Summit has joined this FPX team, Clid has really popped off. He's really become a much better player. This is someone who was very questionable for a lot of 2022 so far, at least up and down at the very least. And we've really only seen the ups from Clid since Summit got here. I don't know what that means. Clid's my player of the series here. He was phenomenal for FPX. Both of their wins were really because of Clid. Viego game 1 was super strong, and then the Volibear game in game 3. Everybody globally is calling Volibear a little bit of a trap pick right now. You can see it on Reddit, you see it in discussions, in pretty much every Discord server, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to talk about. This is how you play Volibear, I know you're playing into a Xin Zhao, and it's a little bit different, right? But you say, all right, I'm going to take both Scuttles, and I'm going to dominate I'm going to gank every lane. Like, I'm just going to play so aggro, I'm not going to farm, and I'm just going to get everybody on the team ahead. And that's exactly what he did, and then he was able to get himself ahead later in the game once his team was able to carry the lanes. So, yeah, this is how you play Volibear. I mean, like, I really have no other words for it. I actually don't think it's a particularly, like, trap pick, right? Because I think Volley, in the right circumstances, can be really strong, as we saw in this game 3. But yeah, Summit also played really well. Big shout out to his Gnar game in game 1. And then he was just better than Fearness in game 3 on the Gangplank into Kayle. That's a matchup that eventually should favor Kayle, but didn't really matter. Yeah, honestly, this FBX team just looks a lot better with Summit involved. A lot more topside focus, which I think is interesting. LWX has been this team's best player all year. It's really not been a question. Him and Hang have really good synergy, but I think for the meantime, I kind of like this focus on Clid being more of the hyper facilitator for the whole team, and a lot of the resources being funneled into where he is on the map. So kind of like that. Hope they continue with just active play. That's kind of what I'd like to see out of FPX. But moving on to LGD, I mean, they're not a great team. You would have hoped to see better, but they did take a game here. Really not the worst thing in the world. They're really trying out quite a few different roster moves. You have the Chilizy Fairness, swap in the top lane. You bring up Kui to play a little bit here in the jungle, but you go back to Shadow for games 2 and 3 here. And neither of them were very good. Kui was really bad in game 1, so he got swapped out immediately, but Shadow was pretty awful in game 3. He got hard out jungled by Clid. They're going to be like my dual dud of the series, like the LGD jungle position is my dud of the series, but really I'm giving it to Shadow. Shadow played 2 games and both of them weren't terrific. I mean, the second one was fine, but it really wasn't him doing a lot of the work. It was Awesome, who has actually been awesome, pardon the pun. He's been really, really good here in the bottom lane. They maybe found a little bit of a hidden gem here at the AD carry position. He's got an absolute nothing for support. No offense, Xin Zhao. But he's got a not so good support here. And he's making him look pretty good. And then Yeji, I think, is fine in the mid lane. Like I said last week, he's a super supportive player that when they're winning is going to look good, and when they're losing is going to look bad. There's really no other way to put it. So LGD is what they is, if you will. They're a bad team that are just kind of hoping to figure out what they have. Kind of like I said earlier, for Invictus Gaming. But for FPX, like, sure, great. This is a good win. Like, you needed it. If you lost this, I would really start to hit the panic button, but this is a good win. Like, you got it, and you got it comfortably. Summit looks good in the top lane, and this team looks like it's cohesive, and it's a lot more together than it was just a couple of weeks ago. So for that, I have to give FPX credit, and I can only hope they continue that form from here. Jumping into our second series here of day 3, we had Victory 5 taking on Rare Adam, and the King has returned. The MVP from Spring Split is back. For the first time this year, Rookie is playing in Summer Split, and we are happy to see it because holy cow, Rookie's just like better than everybody else. Oops, I forgot. Dream being in there and Dream being so good made me think, oh, maybe it's just like a system thing. Maybe everybody else is so good and they just facilitate this mid lane role really well. And the Rookie comes in and is like, actually, no, I'm playing Talia and Lysandra, and I'm winning the game by myself. And it's like, oh, okay, never mind. You're good. Take your time. Take your time. Yeah, Rookie was awesome. He's my player of the series. I mean, big shock. He was phenomenal here. You have Zhao and Bao here at jungle. Great. Like, you have 2 world-class jungles. You have 2 world-class mid laners, it looks like here, if Dream can, like, actually hold up. This team is just spoiled. Like, they're just so completely spoiled at this point. I don't know what to say about their playoff disappointment. It really just felt like top was like the team that could beat Victory 5. And hopefully they can figure that out going into playoffs, because that seems like it's going to be another matchup to look out for. They might be the 2 best teams in the region, but yeah, I mean, this team looks as unstoppable as they've ever looked right now. They looked unstoppable with the sub. The MVP comes back, and they obliterate Rare Adam. Like, it is not even close. Everybody on this team played well. Big shout out to PP God, because he played a Mumu and didn't die, which is, like, impossible. Like, that's impossible. So, shout out to PP God. He's had a really phenomenal year so far, ever since rejoining Victory 5. He's not looked like he did last year at all. He's looked like the rejuvenated version of himself that we had 2 years ago. Obviously, Rich has really coming into his own on Victory 5 here after being a middling top laner for a long time. Photic has developed. You have 2 phenomenal world-class junglers here in Karsa and Xiaolongbao. But yeah, I mean, pretty unbelievable. This team is as good as they are. As for Rare Adam, they look bad. Like, there's the dichotomy of these 2 teams is really fun to pair against each other, in my opinion, because Victory 5 couldn't be firing on more cylinders right now. And Rare Adam has gone from a Spring Split that I think inspired some confidence in some of their young players like Leon and Strive, to like, oh god, this team's not good. Like, they're really not good. They're gonna struggle to get wins, I think, this year. They look really bad. A lot of their players have taken huge steps back. iBoy is among them. He's gonna be my dud of the series here. 2 really bad games for iBoy. That continues a trend of a really bad split for iBoy. He has not been good in quite a while, or at least like really good in quite a while. I've almost lost entire faith with him. I think at this point, you're probably just better looking for someone else, because really the big benefit of having iBoy is, your potential to win. This is a guy who's been to Worlds multiple times, and you kind of brought him in to be a veteran presence that helps your team now, but he's currently not helping your team. He's very much not helping this team win. He's honestly the biggest hindrance to this team losing right now. Although Strive is not far behind him, this is a guy who had a really good Spring Split, or at least a much better Spring Split than I expected. Strive was really solid, and he's taken a really big step back here in Summer. He has not been good so far. Easily his worst series here, but you could argue that, going into Rookie on his return, like, this was always going to be a big Rookie moment, and Strive was just kind of caught in the crossfire. He's not nearly as good, so what happens, but also, yeah, Strive has just generally not been good at all this split. Nobody on this team has. Yuyan just had bad moments. Cube and Leon have been whatever. Like, Leon's been fine. Cube was awful in this one. The Kale in game 1 did nothing. He got obliterated on the Gnar in game 2. Like, really, this team just doesn't seem to have anything in them to compete for a playoff spot, which is really sad considering they had one. So, yeah, definitely not a good look for Rare Adam. The outlooks of these teams, like I said, Rare Adam's going to be at the bottom, and Victory 5 might just be the top of the standings. Obviously not a surprising outcome here, but good nonetheless for Victory 5 fans. That's going to bring us to day 4 of week 5 action here in the LPL, which we kicked off with Team WE taking on OMG, a pretty classic rivalry here in the LPL. Neither team has had their fortunes going in their favor recently, but OMG is going to be the one that's picking up the series win here in a 2-1 win for them. No, he wasn't allowed to play Shyvana at all in this series. He still looked really good, though. Shanji is my player of the series here. He has, like, quietly turned into one of the more consistent top laners. He was, like, inconsistently very good in spring. He would have these performances where sometimes he was really good and sometimes he was just kind of not good. He would often be a reason that OMG wouldn't be able to perform against top teams just because he didn't have the talent to be able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of the top laners in the league. But he's really been pretty fantastic so far in summer. He's really showed up, yes, against weaker competition so far. We'll have to see how he holds up, but he's definitely shown some strides on quite a few different champions is really what has impressed me. The game 2 here on the Rumble was disgusting. A very, very strong Rumble game. Shanji clearly has a playstyle of fire-breathing things, whether it be a mech or a dragon. Just a really, really good series here from him, and continuing on a really good split so far. And again, Cream was really good in this one as well. That Corki pick for Cream is just like an A+ pick. That is another thing that I think you're getting to the point where it's like, maybe you just need to ban that against every time. Like, Shyvana and Corki are feeling very dangerous to leave up against this OMG team, and that's very scary, because Aki's really great on the Lee Sin. We've seen Abel be really, really good on a variety of different AD carries. He was known for his Samira a while ago, and we did see that here in Game 3, where he really beat up SMLZ. But yeah, this OMG team is like secretly becoming a very, very dangerous team to have to play into, because you have so many things that you have to worry about pretty constantly with this roster. Overall, really like the direction they are going in. As for WE, this is not a good team. This is the worst team in the LPL. I'm pretty confident in saying that. It's not that they have, like, no good players. Beishong actually had a really good game 1 here, and they were able to take the first one on the Volley Bear. But, man, the rest of the series was really nothing. Bubu, I'm at the point with Bubu where he's like a worse version of the Shy, where he's going to play to win every game, even if he's not in a position to do so. So you really want to try and get him in a position to do so as much as possible. They were kind of able to do that a little bit in Game 3. At that point, Shanji just got 2 ahead, though. He got to his power spike on Sejuani. You couldn't really get the Gnar rolling at that point, and Cream was able to take over the late game on the Corki. A really good game from Aki here on the Lee Sin as well, I want to point out. But just generally, Bubu is kind of that player where if he's not winning and if he's not on a winning team, he's going to look like the worst player in the league, which is what he's looked like so far this year. He's looked like the worst player in the LPL. I really don't think that there's going to be a lot of argument towards that. I'm not saying that this guy's career is like completely over or anything like that, but you can't put a player like Bubu on a bad team. He's going to look awful because he doesn't have that supporting cast to be able to support him like that. And then the bot lane sucks. Like, we were talking about worst bot lanes in LPL. Like, this one is right up there. Heal is my dud of the series here. He was really not good at all in any of the games. He was really bad in Game 2 on the Nautilus. Like, the engages just were not there. And then on the Braum, it's just such a passive pick with the Aphelios. You have to play so safe into Samira Nautilus, and at that point, you're just going to lose. Especially when you have SMLZ here as your AD carry, who might be the most passive, like, late game AD carry of all time. This guy plays for 10 minutes, and then after that, like, I don't think he knows how to team fight. It's very frustrating to see that and then have him pick things like Jinx and especially the Aphelios. It just doesn't make a lot of sense if you're not going to be super proactive in the late game and attempt to be a focal point for your team. But WE has so many problems right now that it's really hard for me to say that, like, anybody in particular is especially one. This team has a really, really bad habit of getting leads and then not doing anything with them until they lose games. And that's happened in pretty much all of their losses. It's going to continue to happen because this team has no concept of macro, and they certainly can't team fight. This is easily the worst team fighting team in the league, maybe in the world. They really do not have that area of the game down. They can lane, but man, they just have nothing after 10 to 15 minutes. Their mid game is bad. Their late game is worse. They're not looking so hot. They're the worst team in the league. There's nothing else to say. As for OMG, they could very sneakily be a playoff team. This is a really good week for OMG. And man, if Shanji and Cream continue to develop like this, they could be more than that. Like I talked about earlier, this team is the ceiling of a playoff team, but potentially even much higher than that. Moving on to our second series here of day 4. We had LNG Esports taking on JD Gaming, a battle of two teams that I think a lot of people were really excited to see face off against each other, and it's JD Gaming actually able to take this one, continuing their incredibly hot summer start here, piggybacking off of what was a very good spring, a bounce back 2022 so far from JDG after a really disappointing 2021. They are able to pick up the series 2-1 off of the back of their solo laners just being very good. Yagao is going to be my player of the series here, and he's somebody who I think has very, very secretly been one of the better players in the LPL so far this year. He's maybe having the best year of his career on JDG. This has never been a guy that has to be the focal point of JDG, that has to be the main attraction for this team, but man, when you put him on the Azir, when you put him on the Ahri, he can turn into that focal point player that Kanavi plays around, that Hope plays around, that 369 plays around, and he really was that in this series. A phenomenal series for Yagao as the carry, and then 369 really showing the rest of the world who has really struggled with this, how to play tanks successfully in this meta. A very good series from 369, arguably one of the better top laners in the world right now. He's on a complete hot streak. Him and Yagao have been a huge tipping point for why this JDG's team's fortunes have really completely turned around. Like I said, I've also given a lot of credit to Hope. He was good this series, didn't really need much from him. Him and Missing were kind of the non-focal points for this team, and then Kanavi was just kind of everywhere he needed to be. We get to see a Bel'Veth game. Hooray, Bel'Veth is fine. She's whatever, right? Like, she can take over games if she gets the resources. It's just a little bit difficult for her to get resources if the enemy team has a brain. So, we're not seeing her a ton in pro play right now, but maybe that will get a little bit of an uptick. She's getting banned quite a bit as well, but I'm just not that worried about Bel'Veth, at least in the same way that I am some past releases. She's still strong, just not quite, break the game level strong. But, yeah, Yagao looked really, really good in this one, and so did 369. They were the big focal points, I think, for JDG. As, Kanavi and Hope have been for a lot of the year, it's really good to see the solo laners step up. For LNG, I think a lot of people are disappointed with this outing, but I'm not. I also think they looked pretty good here, considering they went up against one of the top teams. One of the teams that I think a lot of people are just kind of writing in as one of the top 4 teams to go to Worlds this year for the LPL in JDG. They looked okay. They won Game 1 pretty decisively, and they had a lead in Game 2. They just couldn't hold on to it. Game 3 was really not in their favor. A lot of that was due to Doanby just getting outplayed here by Yagao pretty heavily. Pretty big mid gap. Doanby is my dud of the series here. He was actually not so good in this one. After having a pretty good series earlier in the week, he comes back to earth here a little bit, and so does the top laner in Ale. Both of them kind of get outplayed here. 369 kind of showing Ale, oh, actually, this is how you play tanks. And then Doanby just kind of not showing up. His mechanics were really bad. In that the game 3, especially here on the Corki, really was not looking good for Doanby. Just outplayed by Yagao pretty much every opportunity. I usually like the Lissandra pick into Ahri, but Yagao was able to kind of control the pace of that matchup anyways, which is really just, credit to Yagao for being able to do that in a counter matchup. But yeah, Doanby just has these games sometimes where he's just not as good. Hopefully we don't get these too much. He had some of these on FPX, but he's been having a lot more in LNG. He had quite a few of these in spring. This is really the first series in summer where he's been not good at all. But still, you're hoping to not get that out of him too much. Light and Awandi are nothing, if Tarzan isn't online. I don't mean to be a negative, but they've really regressed as a bottom lane ever since last year, and then in spring they were a lot better than this too. Summer they've been not good. I don't know what it is. Light has taken a pretty huge step back. This is someone who I was quite high on after spring. I was like, this is a guy who can really be a focal point piece for a Worlds contending team, and he has not been that so far. Him and Awandi, I don't know, because they have chemistry, they have not shown it so far in summer. They really need to step up. Tarzan had a little bit of a down series. Those happen from him, but really you're relying on somebody on this team to step up and be a focal point for this team. If it can't be Doanby if he's having the series, if it can't be Ale if he's on tank duty, if it can't be Tarzan because he's playing Poppy and Volibear and he wants to facilitate, it has to be Light, and it hasn't been any of them, right? In this series at least, it wasn't any of them. Really, it feels like if Doanby is not completely on and Tarzan and Doanby aren't linking up together perfectly, then this LNG team just has no chance. which is a little concerning, but again, take all this with a grain of salt because you are going into one of the best teams in the region, bar none. So really, really difficult to get a read here, but not the best thing to see from LNG. As for JDG, you're going to be happy with this win, of course. You know, beating LNG is a big win, and continuing this big hot streak you're going to love, especially when your solo laners are showing off this level of dominance in their own right to add on to Kanavi and Hope and Missing. This team looks really, really good. Now we jump into our Super Day, our Day 6 of LPL action, and that day was kicked off with Anyone's Legend taking on Ultra Prime, and congrats to Anyone's Legend. They are now 5-3. What's going on? They're actually pretty good. Not that beating Ultra Prime right now is the biggest accomplishment, but this is still a team that I think has some more talent than I think they get credit for. Definitely more talent than they're playing right now, but yeah, Anyone's Legend looks really good. Like, they actually look like a playoff team. I think it's really going to come down to a few teams in that last spot. I really think FPX is surging right now, so for me, those final teams are really looking like any AL, you know, OMG, and BLG. I think are all going to be fighting it out for, like, those final 3 playoff spots, just with how things have been going for their seasons so far, but yeah, a huge win here for Anyone's Legend. They're going to be really happy for it. Chocho plays really well in this one. He's going to get my player of the series. He was awesome. He actually had 2 really good games here. A really good Amumu game and then a Lucian Nami game of, like, this is why you picked that lane. Because if you focus a lot of attention that way, you have a Diana jungle with the Swain mid. This is, of course, going to be a funnel Lucian comp. Like, you're going to put everything you can into that pick. And, of course, Jax in the top lane just be by himself. This is what happens. Like, oh no. Nautilus dies over and over and over again. Not a great one from Chelsea, but Chocho plays really well in the Nami. He plays even better on the Amumu with those engages in game 1. He's had a really good split so far. This team has really been good, and it's off the back, I think, of him and Xiao Hao just being a really good duo, jungle support, kind of roaming duo here for Anyone's Legend. Really happy with how they played. Forge has also played really well as that secondary carry here in the mid lane, behind Betty, who's usually been the main carry. It's hard to attribute a ton of success to Betty because this team does a phenomenal job of setting Betty up to be exactly what he needs to be here on the AD carry. But, you know, Betty is someone who in the past has shown that at a Worlds level, he can be a solid main carry for a team. He was for many years. So, you definitely feel pretty confident about this Anyone's Legends team to be relatively legit. You know, obviously not like top level legit, but like, they're good. They're playoff level legit, which is, I think, surprising to a lot of people. I certainly would not have told you that going into the year, but yeah, they look phenomenal in both game 1 and game 2 here. As for Ultra Prime, like, this is a really disappointing roster. This is a roster that I was quite frankly incredibly excited about going into spring. You can go check that on the channel's history. Ultra Prime was probably the roster I was most excited about going into spring of this year, and they have just disappointed at every turn. I still think Elk is a really phenomenal player, and he deserves much better than being on this Ultra Prime team. But it doesn't matter when the rest of your team plays like this. Cryan has had his ups and downs, a lot of ups, but some downs as well, and then Zoom, Hacker, and Xiaoxi just aren't it. They're not good anymore. We could talk about Zoom first. He did nothing. Did he do anything at all this entire series? Like, this is the problem with Zoom. He's not going to have these ridiculously bad stats, but you look at the impact that he has on the game, and it's less than almost anybody in the league. Like, he's one of the worst top laners in the LPL right now. There's really no other way to put it. He has been pretty awful for Ultra Prime, and he was really bad for top last split as well. It's not like he was any better for them, so I don't know what happened to Zoom. He's fallen off of a cliff here. Had a really bad year on JDG last year, and that seems to be the norm rather than the exception as he comes to Ultra Prime. It is still heavily disappointing. Dud of the series, though, is going to go to Hacker. He continues to be, like, the sour spot for this Ultra Prime team. At least in his case, though, he's trying to do something. He just doesn't have the mechanical skill to pull it off. I've talked about this in quite a few weeks. He was someone that I felt was getting better over time, and all of that has essentially collapsed. He has gone back into, like, the worst E-Star version of Hacker that we got at the beginning of his career. It's really sad to see. He's definitely the weak point of this Ultra Prime team, and quite frankly, probably the one that is most keeping them out of any sort of playoff contention. So definitely a position that I would look I don't know if it's in-house in their, LDL team, or if they need to look outsourced to, like, they have to fix this position. I would try to fix it before the season's over, because I actually think the season is still relatively salvageable. But, I don't know. He's just not good enough. He's probably the worst jungler in the LPL, and that's not a good sign for a team that wants to try to make playoffs. But, yeah, Xiaoxi was also not good. Like I said, especially in that game 2, just kept getting caught out on the Nautilus after the attention was shown bot. So, overall, Ultra Prime's not a very good team. Like, I hate to say it, they're not a good team. Zoom, Cryin, and Elk together can't do it. As much as I love Elk, and as much as I think he's, like, giga-trapped on this team, because I do love Elk, and I do think he's giga-trapped on this team, I still think that this team's probably not a playoff team, and they don't really... I mean, they theoretically have the upside to get there, but they haven't really shown the ability to harness that upside. As for anyone's legend, they're the opposite. They are way overperforming their actual talent expectation going into the year. Players like Zhao Hao, Forge, and Shocho are being really phenomenal, and Betty's being really solid. This team, if they continue on this path, is definitely going to make playoffs, and it's really just about maintaining the form that they're in to continue to surprise the rest of the league. Moving on to the second series here of Day 6, we had Bilibili Gaming, BLG, taking on Weibo Gaming, and a Weibo win here. BLG continues their pretty horrendous slide down the rankings and standings table. This brings them to 2 and 6. We will get to them in a minute, but man... Weibo, this was a coin flip of a series, as all of Weibos are at this point. Like, really, that's just the team they are. I talked about this earlier in the week. They've really adopted the players' mentalities here. The Shy, SOFM, on all these hyper-aggressive players have really got onto one team and are just like, I guess we either win or we lose. Thankfully, in this one, they were better. They're just mechanically better, and so they win. Congratulations. Good for Weibo. Let's talk about On, because he's my player of the series. This guy continues to prove to be one of the better mechanical supports in the world. Really, on any champion that you put him on, he really doesn't seem to have, like, a one type of champion. He looked pretty good on the Rakan in Game 1. Not great. That was their big loss. But he's looked really good on the Rakan in the past. Earlier this week, that was his one good game. Pulls out the Renata, looks phenomenal on it, and then a great game here on the Blitzcrank as well, with the BM taunt at the end. Yeah, great series from On. He continues to just show why he's playing over Sword Art. It's because he offers a mechanical ceiling that you just don't have. With Sword Art, you could argue that Sword Art might help these coin flippy mentalities a little bit more, but at this point, that's the mentality of the team. Like, you better run with it. That can win you series like this. And if you're more mechanically talented, oftentimes it does. And that's what happened here. Him and Huanfeng were just the better bot lane, and it showed. The Shy also played relatively well here on quite a few picks. Honestly, mostly I liked his Gwen game in Game 3. That's the one where I think he really was able to take over the map the most, but still, not a bad Kale game in Game 2. Didn't really have to be the focal point. Obviously, a Sejuani game in Game 1's a little boring, but overall, SOFM continues to be kind of the more questionable member of Weibo, as he's been for a lot of the year, and a lot of last year, too. So hopefully he can figure it out, but you know, Angel continues to be there. I don't talk about Angel a lot on this channel because Angel just continues to be what he is, which is just fine. He's not great. He's not bad. He is exactly whatever the rest of his teammates are given. He doesn't seem to be someone who's going to tip the scales in favor or against you. He's just like, if we're winning, I look good. If we're losing, I look bad. So whatever. I find it kind of difficult to talk about Angel, but yeah, the bot lane was really the big takeaway here. For BLG, it's the opposite. The bot lane was the big takeaway here because they lost hard. Doggo and Crisp continue to look like a bad bot lane. There's really no other way to put it. They continue to look like quite a weak link in terms of the greater surrounding, like, BLG infrastructure. And Fofo subbed back in here along with Khan in the jungle. Khan actually looked pretty good. Fofo continues to look really bad. Honestly, I know I got flack for this in my video last week, but I prefer Icon. At least when Icon's losing, he, like, tries to do something. I talk about this all the time in the LCK and in the LEC. At least when you have the gall to, like, when you're losing, like, try to win. You know what I mean? Like, at least try to say, like, hey, we're losing. I might as well go for this 40-60 play. Like, at least go for that. Fofo just doesn't do that. His Yone mechanics are, quite frankly, bad. He's shown that all year long. At this point, I just don't see a big reason in playing him. He's been really, really awful. And so is Doggo. Doggo's been super bad. Honestly, one of the worst AD carries in the league so far this year. Him and Crisp have no synergy. I wanted to give this one to Doggo again, but I really couldn't justify it. He was okay in their win. And, he wasn't, like, awful in their losses. He still did a ton of damage on Aphelios in Game 3. They just couldn't come away with the win. He still played pretty bad in lane. So I'm going to give it to Crisp, because Crisp had some bad games. That's really not a shocker here. He plays Bard in Game 2. That's never a good strategy, I think, in the meta right now. And then the Thresh in Game 3, which is whatever, right? Like, again, 2 picks that I think are, quite frankly, very weak in the meta right now, and he gets punished for both of them. He's very support diffed here by On in both Games 2 and 3. So, not a good look from Crisp. Really the person who looks good on BLG this series, like I said, is Khan, which you would not have expected. Or Can? I don't know. Tell me in the comments, Can or Khan. But yeah, he looked fine in this series. Nobody outside of that looked even remotely playable. So shout out to that. As for the outlooks, BLG looks bad. I don't even know if this is a playoff team, really. Like I said earlier, they're going to be competing with OMG. They're going to be competing with anyone's legend for that 10th playoff spot. Like, somebody's going to grab that. And right now, BLG looks like they're at the bottom of that pile. They just don't look good. Weibo looks super coin flippy. They're going to continue to be a mid-table team, like a mid-table playoff team, like somewhere around that like 5 to 7 or 8 range. And they're probably going to sit there for the rest of this year. They might be able to upset people in playoffs. I doubt that this is a Worlds team, but they continue to be fun and they continue to show things. They're so mechanically talented that they can figure out the more methodical aspects of the game. Maybe they do get there, so we'll just have to wait and see on them. Moving on to the final series here of the Super Day, Day 6 of Week 5 LPL action. We had a rematch of Spring Finals, a top-of-the-table clash between Top Esports and RNG. And unlike the Spring Finals, this one is actually going to go in favor of Top. A really, really fun 2-1 series win for them here. They take Game 1, they take Game 3. Both of them are very fun. Game 1 is a complete blowout. Game 2 is decently close, but RNG still takes it. And then Game 3 was all night, all the time. A beautiful display from what is clearly the league's best player at this point. It's really hard for me to feel any other way. I love Rookie to death, but when Knight is on, it's just really difficult for me to say that Knight isn't the best player in the LPL. And this is the series why. He didn't win this on his own, but he was a big reason why they won this. He's my player of the series here. He was really phenomenal. You could talk about games 1 and 2. They were both good, especially game 1 on the Ahri, but really, we're here for that game 3 on the Sylas, where he just completely took over the game. It is really, really fun watching one of the best players in the world play a champion like Sylas, because you can basically know from moment 1 that he is going to use your ults better than you can. And that's very, very fun. You had some fun ultimates here, the Rel ultimate, the Lee Sin ultimate, but the one that was really important was the Azir ult. A lot of times he was able to make a ton of really fun plays. Sylas is able to dash in and then use that Azir R. Really, really fun interactions there, and it's a good matchup for Sylas, generally speaking. Xiaohu just had no way to play around it. This is a matchup that Knight has pretty historically always won. If you look back at Knight versus Xiaohu just across the years, Knight has usually gotten the better of him, and this was definitely no exception. But he was not the only player on this team to play really well. That second distinction has to go to Tian, who is having probably the comeback split. I don't know. His split so far has been so phenomenal. He was great in Spring 2, but he's really reestablished himself as one of the best junglers in the world. Period. Full end stop. That's it, right? Like, when he's on, he is one of the best junglers in the world. He's been that consistently pretty much all year. Playing with Knight will definitely help with that, but he's back to being on a good team, and man, does he show it. I know a lot of people were worried about Tian, obviously worried about his health issues, his wrist issues. It was something that had been bothering him for years. But this Tian that we are getting is a completely different animal. He's a completely different beast. One of the best in the world, period. And he showed it here. He just completely out-jungled Wei, who has shown to be one of the better junglers in the LPL. He just completely out-jungled him, pretty much completely. Wayward's a good player. He actually was better than Breathe in this series. It's kind of crazy. Breathe was a pretty huge acquisition for him, kind of the life of BLG last split. A big move for them to go out and change their top laner after winning at MSI. And Breathe kind of gets bodied in the series by Wayward. Wayward was much better. The scores don't show it, but Wayward definitely had a lot more map pressure. And then the bot lane were the bot lane. Like, Jackie Love honestly wasn't the focal point for maybe the first point in a TES series this year. Not that, like, the main focal point, but just, like, he was there. He didn't win or lose them the game. He was just good. He didn't have to be great, and he didn't have to be terrible. which is a really good sign for TES because it's something I was very scared about. But let's jump into RNG. This is a tough loss to take because really you were just outskilled here. And this is a team that you pretty confidently beat. Not confidently. It was a really close series, I should say, in Spring Finals, but you felt good about beating them and being better than them in Spring. You come out here, and they very much look like the better team. RNG have already lost earlier in the season to Victory 5 without Rookie. To lose to top here, some early setbacks for RNG that definitely make me concerned. Mostly in the mid-jungle duo that has really not performed super well so far in this split. Wei and Xiaohu have definitely been the weak point of RNG in summer. Obviously not in spring. They both played phenomenally in spring, but a little bit of the MSI hangover has hit them, it seems. Obviously, you know, spring to summer Xiaohu is a meme at this point, but it's not like Xiaohu has ever been a bad player in summer. We're just so accustomed to how good he is at the beginning of the year. I do want to note that this bot lane still is really good, and while they didn't get a huge chance to show it in this series, they still played really well. I think Gala is able to team fight really well. It was really the top side of the map that was a little bit of the issue here, and that's really what you just have to shore up. Like I said, Xiaohu, just because you can't lane into Knight doesn't mean you're still not one of the best LPL mid laners. Knight is a completely different beast. Wei losing to Tian is a little more concerning. Obviously, it's just one series, but you would hope that Wei would be able to be a better player than Tian. He has been for most of the year, and like last year as well. He was the better player, so obviously you're hoping to see a bounce back from Wei, and then obviously you spend a lot of resources to bring Breathe in here in the top lane, replacing Bin, and at first I would have told you that was an upgrade. I thought Bin was a little bit of a weak point for this RNG team, if they had any in spring, and Breathe I thought was a strong point for BLG, bring them in, but Breathe we're not as comfortable with in big matches. Not nearly as we are with Bin, so it'll definitely be interesting to see how Breathe adjusts, but for now, I'm not pulling the complete rug on RNG, but there definitely is a little bit of room for concern to say, maybe this isn't the best team in the LPL. Like, Victory 5 and TES both look like more complete sides, not only because they have beaten them, but in the ways that they have beaten them, they look like more complete sides, so definitely something to keep your mind on. As for TES, a phenomenal win. This, you couldn't ask for anything more. There's barely a better start to the season that you could ask for. They are in the top 1 to 2 teams in the world right now, in my opinion. They really are that good. They can battle it out with anybody, and I really, really hope this team doesn't bottle it like they sometimes do towards the back half. That means we can jump into our final day here of LPL Week 5 action. We kick that off with the series between ThunderTalk Gaming and Invictus Gaming. And actually, TT's able to pull out the series win here, 2-1. That's a 2-0 series win for ThunderTalk. That is something to build on. Obviously, I'm not going to say it's completely because you put in this new bot lane, but this new bot lane has looked very, very good in the short time that they have been in, as a much improved upgrade to what they had before. But they're not the only ones who have started to play better. I've been saying it all year long, but Beishuan is kind of stuck on this team. It seems like he is the only player with quite a bit of upside, or at least what we thought was the only player with quite a bit of upside on this ThunderTalk roster. And he really shows why once he starts to get a competent team around him. He was really, really solid in this series. Game 1 on the Viego was really good, and then the Lee Sin game in Game 3, also pretty spectacular. He's going to get my player of the series here for ThunderTalk. He was really good, so is Yucal. Yucal actually had a very underrated good week for ThunderTalk here. He's kind of shown his ability to adapt over the course of a season. I'm not going to say that bot lane feels like it was one of the only major problems for TT, but honestly, like, this bot lane has reinvigorated what this team is able to do, and it's really fun to watch. It's really fun to watch Beishuan and Yucal feel like they have a new sense of presence around the map because they can pick the Silas and they can kind of just play for the bottom lane, play for the Jinx. And then you can pick stuff like Kalista Trundle, and that's going to be a lot of fun in Game 3. Then you can have the scaling here on the Azir. Beishuan can focus on the bot side to get that Kalista ahead with, you know, a really strong laning phase into a Draven that can't do anything about it. And then eventually Azir's just going to take over and be able to crush those team fights. Hoya on the top lane's fine. He's not a positive or a negative for this team, just like he hasn't been. No offense to Hoya for any team he's been on. He's just kind of there. But yeah, honestly, ThunderTalk looks a lot better this week. If they can keep this up, yes, it's against much worse competition, but if they can keep this up, they might not be in the bottom tier of teams, which I definitely think is something that at this point they're happy to take. As for Invictus Gaming, wow, this team needs to figure out their bottom lane. Like, we're at the point where I'm just like, blow it up. Like, you need to stop playing Wink. That's the first thing I need to say. He's my dud of the series here. He's been probably the worst player in the LPL. I mean, him and Bew certainly give themselves a run for their money, but Wink was a bad AD carry, and then they started playing On because they really wanted to play On, but instead of playing Jinlu, who, yes, was bad earlier in the week, or Ke, who is someone who has shown, you know, relative potential in the LDL. He's been really good in the LDL. You move Wink to support. Wink is a bad support. There's no other way to put it. He's the worst support in the LPL if he is the one playing that position. But I just have nothing else to say. You have to give somebody else a shot here. Even if you really want to give Wink a shot, I need you to play somebody else at support. Wink cannot be that guy. He's shown that he is not capable of being an LPL quality support. Not that On has been much better. He was pretty good in their win on Aphelios. Kind of a big reason there that they won was that Aphelios. Not the only one. Jun actually played a really good Wukong game, but On was all right. The reason he doesn't get done to the series is that, but he's not good in their losses either. His Draven game was really frustrating to watch, and he did nothing, absolutely nothing, on Kalista into a Jinx early in game 1. So this bot lane needs a fix. Uakai in game 3, I get wanting to hold package for like a super important fight. We saw earlier in the week how important that can be if you actually do pull it off to have that whole full package combo, right? But man, he never used it. Like, there were so many situations that could have been turned in IG's favor if Uakai had pulled the trigger on those quirky packages. It's just a flaw that he's had all the time. He's very, very passive, and you need to fix that. I think Zika and Jun have upside, especially Jun. I'd really like to see what he can do on a team that isn't, I don't want to say incompetent, but like a bottom team. Really, at this point, I just don't think we can say that Invictus Gaming is going to be that this year. They do not look like a good team at all. Even when their good players play well, they are just so dragged down by the lower ends of their roster that it's going to be really hard for them to generate any sustained levels of success. Team outlook-wise, Invictus Gaming is one of the worst teams in the league, period. They're down there with, you know, WE as one of the worst teams in the league. I don't even think it's really that debatable anymore. ThunderTalk might be a little bit better than that, especially with this new bot lane. They might be a little bit closer to, you know, 11 or 12 than they are to 16, 17, which is honestly an improvement. This team has not been anything but the bottom of the barrel for, I don't know, however long they've been in the LPL. So honestly, this is the best shot they've got to field a competitive roster and to maybe even push for playoffs. I'm not saying it's like likely, but they're not as far out as you think. So maybe if they can continue the hot streak going, they can make the miracle run happen. That's going to bring us to our final series of Week 5 LPL action, and that was defending champs EDG Edward Gaming getting throttled and outclassed by Victory 5 in a very fun V5 win. This team is so good. This bot lane, oh my god, what a bot lane clinic this series was. If you are an aspiring AD carry or support, mostly, it's hard for me to say mostly support because PP God makes some unbelievable plays, and Fodic is mechanically unreal, but, like, if you're an aspiring player, watch this series. This is how you dominate a game from the bottom lane. 2 games, honestly, both of them. Senatom Kench is such an overpowered duo, but even the Kalista, like, they got so far ahead on the Kalista into the Senatom Kench matchup. Like, this was a no-brainer V5 win. Take your pick as to who is player of the series, either Fodic or PP God. I'm going to give it to PP God because honestly, I thought his plays were flashier, and that's really that's the only difference. I can separate the two of them. They both deserve it here. They were both phenomenal, but they weren't the only ones of this Victory 5 team to play well in this series. Pretty much everybody did. Rookie, obviously, 2 games of Talia. That's kind of become a big staple pick for this Victory 5 team in general, as has the Gnar up in the top lane. Both of those solo lane picks have become very popular for this V5 team. It gives them a lot of cross-map versatility. And the Gnar in the top lane is, of course, very safe. It's very good into the Sejuani. It allows you to scale up of being a tank while also still maintaining pressure within the laning phase to make sure that you have your jungle assisted in whatever ways they needed to be assisted in the top side. And then, you know, the Talia pick is self-explanatory, especially in the Corki. It's one of the few picks in the meta that can actually match Corki's insane level of cross-map pressure. So I like both of those, and everybody played really well. It's just Fodic and PP God were really the focus points, the central points of this Victory 5 team. Not to say anybody else played bad, just that they are the best. And honestly, as a group, as a 5, they for sure look like the best team in the LPL right now. It's really hard to tell. Obviously, them and Top are really close for me, but they look like the best team in the LPL just from how they've played this split perspective. As for EDG, another tough loss for them. They lose earlier in the week. They lose here too. An 0-2 week is not exactly what you wanted to see for EDG as they kind of fall down a little bit here. This is not the team that won Worlds. I don't know who I need to tell that to, but they've regressed in pretty much every aspect. Flandre got completely outplayed by Rich. Yes, the Gnar into Sejuani lane isn't terribly exciting. Not much that Sejuani can do, but Flandre's never really been that good of a tank player, and this series kind of shows why. He wasn't useful really at all on the Sejuani here. Didn't add or subtract too much. Scout got outplayed by Rookie, JJ got outplayed by Karsa, but neither of them were that big of a deal. Really, the big problem was the bot lane here, which has kind of been an area that I'm not going to say has been a strength for EDG, but Viper has been a pretty big constant for EDG, even when they've struggled this year. But he got outplayed pretty heavily by Fodic in this series. It really wasn't even that close. Mako's going to be my dud of the series here. The gap between PP God and Mako was pretty ginormous here, and Mako has honestly been a problem for EDG all year long. I don't know if it's him being checked out or if it's like a post-Worlds hangover, whatever you want to call it, right? Mako has not been... If you asked me at the beginning of the year if Mako was one of the best supports in the world, I would have said absolutely no question, no brainer, yes. And he has not come even close to that so far in 2022. Hopefully he can get back to that form, but you could say that about pretty much all of EDG. Scout is not in the form he was in. JJ's not in the form he's in. Flandre is certainly not in the form he's in. Really, it's just Viper, and Viper had a bad series, which means that EDG really had no chance of winning this one. So, not a very good look from an EDG team that needed to show something. Unfortunately, they didn't show anything, so not great there. As for outlooks of these two teams, EDG continues to fall in my perspective. This is a team that, I had them 5th last week, the best team that isn't in the top 4. I don't know where they're going to be yet. We'll see in just a minute, obviously, when I do my power rankings. But as of recording this, I really don't know. This team is very confusing to deal with, but it's not positive. Honestly, it's not just the fact that they went 0-2. It's the fact that they really haven't looked good for quite a while. This is not the EDG that you know and love. As for Victory 5, this is a very, very, very good League of Legends team. You could very much argue the best in the world. And they're going to be in that conversation until they prove that they're not. And it's really, really fun to see Rookie, PP God, Karsa, Rich, Fodic, all these guys kind of get thrown together and be one of the best teams in the world. But that's just the fun of the LPL. I feel like we get one of these teams every year. And I, for one, am very excited for it to be this one. All right, that is going to do it for my LPL Week 5 overview and analysis. Up on your screen right now, you're going to see a Week 5 standings table, of course, sorted by standings in the league. Any ties, which I don't think there are, will be broken alphabetically. It's, of course, sorted first by series record and then by game record, just as they actually do in the LPL. You can see next to every team is a number with the power ranking column. That is where I personally power rank those teams from 1 to 17. We can go over the biggest risers and the biggest fallers right now. The biggest riser this week is actually ThunderTalk Gaming, rising all the way up from 16 to 12. A pretty big jump. They look a lot better with this new bot lane. I'm actually pretty sold on them being better than this bottom tier of like Ultra Prime, Rare Atom, LGD, etc., right? I'm pretty sold on them, at least for the moment, being better. Beishuan's better than anybody that they have, with the exception of Elk. And UCal's starting to play like UCal again, which is a good thing. Other big risers, FPX jumping all the way up to number 6 in my power rankings. Some people are going to be really upset by that because FPX is still pretty bottom in the actual standings, but I really just feel like this team has figured it out. Summit coming in has clearly helped Clid a lot, and this bot lane didn't even have a good week, and they still were really, really good. They haven't been perfect since Summit came in, and LWX and Hang have been the lifeblood of this FPX team. If this whole team can start connecting, they are a top 6 team, and that is what I predict for this team. I think they're going to be closer to 6 than they are to 10. Another big riser, OMG, jumping into the playoffs this week to number 10. A few teams falling out, but OMG kind of capitalizing on that, jumping into number 10 in my power rankings. But let's talk about the fallers. some of the people that fell out of the playoffs first. Of course, the biggest faller of the week, as you can see, -4, is Bilibili Gaming, BLG, dropping from 7 to 11 out of the playoffs. They are not a playoff team as they are constructed right now. You cannot convince me otherwise. This team has not played even remotely to a playoff caliber. I want to keep them in that conversation because this roster absolutely should be in that conversation, but until they prove something, they're going to be here. They're going to be at 11 outside, below teams like Anyone's Legend, below teams like OMG. So they're the biggest faller of this week. Not the only faller. Another big one is going to be EDG, falling all the way down to 8 from 5. Like I said, they were my number 5 team, my best team outside of the top 4, which I think is pretty secluded space right now, but they did not have a good week, and they do not look as good as some of the teams that I put above them. I trust Weibo more, and they're the coin flip team. I trust FPX more, and they're still not even, close to 500. And I trust LNG more, who certainly have their own problems themselves with being consistent. So that should tell you all you need to know about where I think EDG is at this point. They look nowhere near a world's, birth. So hopefully they can figure that out. Everything else is up on your screen. I will note, like I said, the top 4 are pretty locked in for me. V5, TES, JDG, RNG. There may be some controversy as to what order you want to put them in. This is what I put them in, but, those are clearly the top 4 teams in the LPL to me. Everybody else, it's an uphill battle to break into that. As for my player of the week and my dud of the week, my player of the week here in week 5, I actually had a pretty tough choice because there was quite a few worthy candidates, but for me, it goes to our Lord and Savior, PP God. He is the player of the week here in week 5. He was so phenomenal in that second series, but he was also really good. People overlooked him in that first series because of how well Rookie played, but PP God was just phenomenal all week. Clearly, in my opinion, the best player in the LPL in week 5. As for the worst, somebody who's probably had this award coming, but hasn't gotten it yet so far this year, the dud of the week is going to go to Wink on Invictus Gaming. Clearly just, it's a lost cause at this point for IG to try to salvage something out of whatever that bot lane is. They have good players on that team, but they are never going to actually get performances if they continue to play like they have been. So yeah, Wink is going to be my dud of the week, and PP God is my stud or my player of the week, whatever you want to say there. But yeah, that's going to do it for my week 5 analysis. If you liked it, please leave a like down there below. It really does help me out a ton, a lot more than you could ever know. It really does show me that you guys are enjoying the content, and it shows me that you guys want more LPL stuff, because I know the LPL is a little bit more of a niche market than maybe some of the Western regions for us English speakers, but I'm happy to provide that content nonetheless. But with that being said, I hope you all are having a great day. I hope you continue to have a great day, and I will see you all later.